The Great Depression by Franz Severs. When World War I officially ended in 1919, Americans were tired of the war and ready for good times. In the early 1920s, there were plenty of jobs in the United States. People earned good incomes. Businesses grew quickly. During the Roaring Twenties, American consumers enjoyed spending money. Those who could not afford the most expensive items borrowed money so they could buy now, pay later. They bought new homes, they purchased cars, washing machines, and other large items. They also bought smaller goods, such as toasters and irons. To meet the demand, factories rushed to make even more products. But companies made too many goods, and people stopped buying them. By the end of the 1920s, warehouses were filled with merchandise that no one bought. Factory production slowed down. Many factory workers lost their jobs. At the same time, many Americans decided to invest money in the stock market. They hoped to get rich quickly. The stock market is a place where shares of stock in different companies are bought and sold. People hope to make a high return by buying stock at a low price and selling it at a higher price. From June through September 1929, the prices of stock soared. Then, prices began to dip slightly. Nervous investors began selling millions of stock shares for less than the purchase price, losing billions of dollars. On October 31, 1929, the stock market crashed when stock prices dropped sharply. The crash caused panic. People took their money out of banks, and banks were forced to close. More than 600 banks failed in 1929. The stock market crash led to a financial crisis called the Great Depression. A depression is a serious slowdown in the economy that causes people to lose their jobs and businesses to fail. At the start of the Great Depression, and about 1.5 million Americans were out of work. By 1933, about 12 million Americans had lost their jobs. To earn money, jobless people sold apples, pencils, and other items on the street. They sold their personal belongings. Some were forced to beg for money. Without an income, thousands of jobless Americans lost their homes because they did not have the money to pay rent. If they had borrowed money to buy a house, they could not pay for their loans, so the banks took their homes. People were forced to live with friends or family members. If necessary, they stayed in churches or rooming houses. Sometimes the homeless built shacks from old crates and scrap metal. These temporary homes lacked electricity or running water. About 2 million homeless men, women, and children drifted around the country. They broke the law by hitching free rides on trains. They rode from place to place looking for work, food, and shelter. Millions stood in line for free bread or soup that charity groups provided. In 1931, charity groups in New York City served about 85,000 free meals a day. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, America's economy slowly improved. Roosevelt's plan to fix the nation's money problems was called the New Deal. To improve the situation, the government passed laws that changed banking systems, provided the needy with aid, and created new jobs. In 1933, about 25% of Americans were jobless. By 1937, the unemployment rate had fallen to about 14%. Unfortunately, nearly 8 million Americans still did not have jobs. The Great Depression lasted for more than 10 years. In 1941, the United States entered World War II. Factories started making war supplies, such as airplanes, tanks, and ships. As the need for war supplies increased, businesses hired more and more people. America's hard times finally came to an end. During the Great Depression, people stood in line for hours waiting for bread. Stock, a percentage of ownership of a company that an individual can buy or sell. Number 1. Read the sentences below. During the Roaring Twenties, American consumers enjoyed spending money. Those who could not afford the most expensive items borrowed money so they could buy now, pay later. They bought new homes. They purchased cars, washing machines, and other large items. They also bought smaller goods, such as toasters and irons. Which best states the meaning of consumers? A. Wealthy people. B. Individuals who work in factories. C. People who buy and use products. D. Those who do household chores. Number 2. Read the dictionary entry below. A profit from an investment. Which word from the passage best matches the dictionary entry? A. Production. B. Return. C. Financial. D. Banking. Number 3. Read the sentences below. When World War I officially ended in 1919, Americans were tired of the war and ready for good times. In the early 1920s, there were plenty of jobs in the United States. People earned good incomes. Businesses grew quickly. During the Roaring Twenties, American consumers enjoyed spending money. What lines best support why the author tells the reader about the 1920s with the use of the phrase, the Roaring Twenties? Select 2 answers. A. Occurring at the end of World War I, the 1920s was a decade characterized by a sense of peacefulness and calm. B. The 1920s was a lively decade characterized by excitement and hope. C. The 1920s was an uneventful decade characterized by people readjusting to their everyday life after World War I. D. The 1920s was a time when Americans thrived. E. Leading to the Great Depression, the 1920s was characterized by despair and financial hardship. Number 4. Read the sentences from the text below. By 1937, the unemployment rate had fallen to about 14%. Unfortunately, nearly 8 million Americans still did not have jobs. What does the root in the word unemployment mean? A. Unable to find work. B. To give or provide work to someone. C. The percentage of people currently not working. D. To use an object, person, or idea to achieve a specific task.